How did your affair start? Hey people of Reddit, ready to dive into some seriously spicy stories. Today, we're peeking into the secret world of affairs, straight from Reddit. We got the lowdown on how these affairs kicked off, from chance encounters that turned into something more to sneaky connections that nobody saw coming. Brace yourselves for some real talk. Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 15. She found a tank top in the laundry that wasn't her size. She threw it in my face, said,
I hope she was worth it.
and stormed off. Turns out it was her shirt that I shrunk because I'm bad at laundry. Something similar happened to me. She found my female roommate's missing sock next to the dryer. Never mind that I lived with two other dudes in addition who also had their girlfriends over regularly who did their laundry there. Number 14. I was stuck in a non-physical marriage with a hoarder rats were living in the dryer, as example, who didn't keep up with house repairs. Spent 4 months drinking bottled water because the well wasn't safe without work. Couldn't get out because I was 20 kilometers from anywhere, was given a car that didn't run. Coworker usually picked me up for work, or I walked to the closest carpool lot. Cracked under the lonely stress when coworker found me attractive. Turns out my ex was really close at it, hence the hoarding and inability to function. I wasn't running on all cylinders after all that either. He's got a roommate now, the house is fixed. I'm still with coworker after 10 years and we all get together so often. Asterisk prime example of people who really shouldn't have been married in the first place. Number 13. She started telling me about relationship troubles. We grew closer over time, sharing insecurities and whatnot. Eventually we developed feelings, on which we could not act. Eventually, those feelings became too strong and we caved. It lasted for 1.5 years. Me trying to commit to this new thing we developed. We're not completely able to let go. She jumped between me and the other. Eventually I realized my committing to and feeling for her were unhealthy. And I realized, too late, that I didn't want to be the person that made someone else cheat. Number 12. Was once accused of cheating. Front passenger seat on my car was moved too close for any guy to sit, and my then GF demanded to know who I'd had in my car. I told her it was Chris, a coworker. She came storming into my company the next day, demanding to see Chris. Imagine her face when she found out Chris was Christopher. A little person, he stood 4 feet 2 inches. I milked her apology for a decade. Number 11. I wasn't happy in my marriage. I was traveling for work and was at dinner with someone else who had traveled into the location. We were the last two out and were talking. I asked about her family. She said her husband was in a shoal. One thing led to another, and we started an affair for the next 2 years. Number 10. We had been talking through Skype at work over nonsense for a while. One day the conversation started to get a little in a personal, not sexual way, so we can change numbers, and continued the conversation. While still at work we are texting back and forth. She's telling me things she could never say at work, because of the environment and so on. A little into the conversation she implies something sexual, and all of a sudden we are full out sexting one another. No longer implying but now in full graphic detail going back and forth on the things we do to each other. The end of the day starts to come around and we are trying to conclude things. She suggests I walk her to her car, and that was the beginning of what I would go on for 2 years. We'd go to lunch, then find a spot. Get off of work, find a spot, then head home. Stay late, find a spot, and so on. Being a 22 male at the time living with roommates, and generally being broke, I thought this was a great deal. She was also 34 and beautiful, so I never questioned anything. We had this friends with benefits thing going on for 2 years, got a hotel a few times, but again thought it was because of the roommates. This was also extremely secret as we worked directly with each other, and half the fun was pretending there was nothing going on in front of other people. To me this really seemed like a hot flame, and that'd be that. She never mentioned her husband to me or anyone that spoke to both of us, but even so it would have never been a topic because no one knew. I asked her to watch my dog while I went out of town one day. She said sure we'd meet up after I get off as I stayed late. I had my roommate bring my dog to work before leaving so we didn't have to make an extra trip. We agreed to meet in the building, but I saw her car and decided to just walk to the car instead. Car's still running so I assume she's in it. Knock on the window, and this guy rolled down the window from the passenger side. I knew who he was before he started speaking. It doesn't help that he knew why I was there and introduced himself as her husband. She had left to go meet me in the lobby, and while we waited for her to return, her husband and I had a conversation. He seemed like a really good guy. Not normal good, but one of those genuinely nice people. I felt sick the entire time. She returns, things get really awkward between me and her. I hand over my dog and we go about our day. Things ended there. We never officially ended it or really talked about it. It kinda just stopped. I eventually ended up leaving that job shortly after. But weirdly enough, she still reaches out from time to time, even though it's been years. Edit. I got my pupper back after I returned from my trip. His name is Leo, and we are still best buds. Secondly, I never planned to tell her husband or plan to. As crappy as the situation was, their relationship isn't really any of my business. Plus, it has been actual years since. It'll be awkward to bring it up now. Lastly, she still reached out as an old friend would. Like checking up on me, seeing how life is going, things like that. We've had no physical contact from that day forward. Number 9. My husband's affair started shortly after we got married. We lived in an apartment complex and all the mailboxes were in the lobby area. I checked the mail while he was at work, like I always did. I opened a card, not paying attention to who it was addressed to. But the front of the card read,
I miss you in the morning. I miss you in the evening.
and the inside of the card read,
But I especially miss you at night.
and there was a drawing of a woman in bed wearing a negligee. And it was signed, I miss you and love you, with a woman's name. So I looked at the envelope, and it was addressed to my husband. We had only been married 3 months, so I immediately gathered all of his items and threw them into the hallway. He came home and tried to come into the door, but I had the chain lock on it. He was like, what the hell is going on? I said, your girlfriend freaking misses you, so we're over and you can go stay with her. And I opened the door wide enough to throw the card and envelope into the hall. About 15 minutes later, there is a knock at my door. It's my next-door neighbor. I had seen him around, but we hadn't made formal introductions yet. I open the door, and my husband is standing down the hallway. The neighbor says, hi, my name is, censored name here. You've accidentally got my mail today. My neighbor had the exact first and last name as my husband. He said, my wife has been out of town on a business trip. She sent the card to me. I said, bullshit, and shut the door on him. 5 minutes later, there's another knock at my door. I look to see my next-door neighbor again, but this time he's holding up his driver's license and the card envelope. His license shows he has the exact name as my husband, and the card envelope has their apartment number on it. At the time, it was pretty fucking traumatic, but now, 31 years later, my husband thinks it's absolutely hilarious. Number 8. Bingo. Caught my ex-wife cheating once, forgave her, then after that, every single woman I dared to have contact with outside of work/school/family was my way of getting back at her. To the point I was accused of cheating with her sister, her brother's wife, her cousin, 3 different coworkers, 2 friends I knew before I met her, and at least 4 other students when I went to college. And 1 neighbor. Dealt with all of it, thinking this was her reaction to feeling overly guilty about what she did. I'm pretty sure in that mix there, she cheated on me with a coworker because of the amount of unprompted overtime she had to work and such. Shift ended at midnight and not get home till 2:30. But I wasn't going to her and accuse her of cheating over every little thing. The last time she did it was with a guy she met online. She said she was going to visit a girlfriend of hers for the weekend, and when I couldn't get a hold of her and tried contacting the girlfriend, she confessed that she was never coming to see her and she was visiting this guy. The relationship was over right there. She moved in within a month, left our kids with me, and hasn't been back to see them in almost 7 years now. We'll tell anyone that'll listen that I was physically and emotionally abusive, and I'm keeping the kids from her and she's too scared of me to try and visit. I'm a giant f***ing teddy bear of a guy who doesn't have an aggressive bone in his body, but oh well. Her family knows the truth and has basically disowned her. Number 7. Met her at my, now ex-wife's birthday party. Asked wife if I could F her and wife said sure. We got along great and started dating, all above board with the wife. Wife eventually gets jealous and says no more. I kept it up behind her back. Eventually dumped the wife due to her coat problem. This was a wild ride. Number 6. I met a married lady while at Myrtle Beach. She was in a crappy marriage. Pina colada or 2 later we were talking. Yada yada. Ended up together for several years. I felt a little bad about the beginning situation, but it was the best years of my crappy life. And hers, I think. Miss her every day. Second wife cheated on me with her girlfriend, and then another guy. Didn't bother me because we were in a bad marriage. Now I'm happily single again. Number 5. The wife of a guitarist in a relatively famous band from the early 2000s met me, and I was strung along with the "I don't want to be with him" promises, building me up into a jealous man that I promised I'd never be by fueling the seriousness of the affair, but also sleeping with other men, and conceding that it was cheating on me. Never really addressing that we're doing that, but okay. Was an absolute and the whole thing felt very dirty and degrading. They're not together anymore, and she ended up being with one of the 4 guys she was with, had a kid with him, but I still see that husband out. I guess he doesn't know. Or he does, and too much time has passed to care. I don't really know him. That shit sent me into a spiral of relationship issues that take heavy management. I've been the other guy a handful of times, but this one really messed me up for a long time. Number 4. My wife let a friend borrow a hooded sweatshirt one evening while she had a fire and a few friends over. Her friend washed said hoodie and returned it. My wife washes it because she doesn't like her fabric softener. There was a pair of her friend's underwear stuck in the sleeve of the hoodie that came out in our washer machine. I get home from working, and she accused me of cheating after a massive fight, and me racking my brain. She called her friend and confirmed it's her black thong. Yup, everyone immediately jumps to cheating. Number 3. We met at work and started having threesomes with my wife. One thing led to another, and we started hooking up without her. Thankfully, my wife forgave me and we were able to reconcile. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done. If you're considering cheating, let me assure you, you will either get caught or, hopefully, be so consumed with guilt that you will rat yourself out. Number 2. She walked onto my side of our shared balcony. I let her inside. She stayed a little while. She started coming over more often, nearly daily. So I started buying her some snacks, some toys. We'd spend as much time as we could before my neighbor noticed she was with me. Rainbow, I miss you. Number 1. When my wife found a napkin in my pocket and swore it was not her lipstick. I had no idea how it got inside my pocket. After months of her thinking I was cheating, at lunch one day I was eating a sandwich and drinking a red Gatorade. After wiping my mouth with the napkin, I realized it was the same shade as my evidence of an affair napkin. Edit: this happened after literally a few weeks of marriage. I married this woman only after knowing her a few months. 26 years later, we are stronger than ever, but when I bring this up, I swear I feel she's not 100% sold on it. Alright folks, that's a wrap on our affair tales from Reddit. Hope you had as much fun listening to these stories as we did sharing them with you. Hey, if you've got some wild stories of your own, spill the beans down in the comments. We love hearing from you, and let's be real, who doesn't love a good story? Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for hanging out. Till next time, keep it real, keep it chill, and remember, life's full of surprises. See you in the next video.